Researcher notes.
My real story began when I decided to move to another city and leave my hometown. About 4 years had passed, and one day I went back to spend time at home, see my loved ones, and visit the family graves at the local cemetery. As is proper for anyone connected to these places, the first thing I did was go to visit the graves of close relatives. Imagine my astonishment when I noticed the drastic changes that had taken place at the cemetery. What stood out the most was the new fence installed over the final resting place of one of my family members. At first, I attributed what I saw to temporary memory loss. After all, so many years had passed since I last saw this place. Then I turned to my mother to ask if the fence's structure had really changed. She confirmed that the old fence remained exactly as I remembered it, adding that the fence had been repaired shortly before I moved. Moreover, she had receipts and invoices confirming the purchase of materials in a specific design. According to the documents, the pattern of the metal structure was a repeating square within a square motif. However, upon returning to the family cemetery 4 years later, I saw a completely different picture. The design had drastically changed. Now the metal fence was decorated with a pattern consisting of a square, an oval, and a circle nested within each other. At first, I thought I was mistaken, but doubts grew stronger, and I stopped discussing it with anyone for fear of seeming insane. Returning home, I decided to verify the authenticity of the documents and found the saved purchase receipts. To my surprise, they clearly confirmed the original design of the metal fence, exactly the structure I had initially remembered the pattern, square within a square. These facts confirmed my initial impressions and cast doubt on the reality of the changes noticed later. This incident marked the beginning of a series of similar situations, each of which seemed strange and inexplicable. Soon I realized that I had encountered a phenomenon known as a glitch in the matrix, a sense of temporal inconsistencies and altered memories of past events. After the first case, other similar incidents followed, prompting reflection on the nature of our consciousness and perception of reality. Perhaps someday I will tell you more in detail about all such occurrences. I am a native of the sunny city of Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan. I experienced a tragic event in 1981. My beloved mother passed away when I had just turned 9. Over time, the pain of loss dulled, but the memory of my mother remained forever in my heart. One day, my father decided to visit her grave. For the residents of Tashkent, visiting the cemetery is a common practice, as our burial sites are known for their cleanliness and well-kept appearance. Locals joke that walking among the monuments and trees here is a real pleasure, as if strolling through the most beautiful park or even a museum. We arrived at Mum's resting place. Father said a prayer, honouring the cherished memory of our beloved woman, and then carefully began cleaning the marble monument placed in her memory. Feeling awkward next to my father, absorbed in sad memories, I asked for permission to take a little walk alone. At that time, parents trusted their children with much more freedom than they do now, as children rarely got lost and were always nearby. After walking only about 60 meters, I suddenly noticed a strange sight ahead. In front of me, a small body of water opened up, adorned with picturesque plants with huge leaves, as if cut out from a fairy tale painting. From afar, I could hear the gentle sound of trickling water, pouring straight from a massive ancient clay vessel, majestic and old, resembling a gigantic antique jug. But the most amazing thing awaited me further on. Charming little birds, tiny hummingbirds, were hovering above the water. Their graceful bodies shimmered with bright rainbow colours, creating a magical dance of light and shadow. I had never encountered these wonderful creatures in real life before, only observed them on television, and I could never have imagined that they live right here, in my homeland. Enchanted by the beauty of what I saw, I stood still, admiring the wonder of nature before me. But soon I realized that I had to share such a marvel with my father. My feet carried me back to him on their own, to call him to marvel at the incredible sight together. Returning to the same place a moment later, I was truly shocked. There was neither the magnificent pond, nor the ancient plants with giant leaves, nor the magical jug pouring a stream of clear water, and certainly no hummingbirds anywhere. Everything had vanished without a trace. Many years have passed since then. In my life, I have visited my parents' cemetery hundreds, if not thousands of times, yet that mysterious corner has remained an unsolved enigma, preserved forever only in my memory.
Sometimes, our everyday life presents surprises that make us reflect on the nature of reality around us. One particular incident stands out in my memory, as it shook the ground from under my usual perception of the world. It happened one morning when our whole family went to town on some errands. My daughter went into a store, while my husband and I stayed to wait for her by the car. Cars were parked along the street in neat rows, and the sun brightly lit the street, casting long shadows on the asphalt. Right in front of our car, a middle-aged woman appeared, dressed rather modestly. She walked slowly, confidently making her way past our car from left to right. Catching sight of her out of the corner of my eye, I instinctively followed her with my gaze for a few seconds as she passed by the car window. Then my thoughts drifted away, my eyes lowered, and I returned to my own tasks. However, just a couple of moments later, lifting my head again, I was stunned. The very same woman was once again slowly walking past the car in the same direction from right to left. How was that possible? She had just recently passed our car and physically couldn't have managed to walk the entire way back, let alone end up at exactly the same point on the route in less than a second. Surprised by my discovery, I shifted my gaze to my husband. His facial expression spoke for itself. Wide open eyes, raised eyebrow, and slightly parted mouth all indicated complete bewilderment. It seemed he had also noticed the repetition of the event and was just as shocked as I was. "Did you see that?" I asked, feeling a shiver inside. "That woman just walked by here and couldn't have returned so quickly because there are no turns or hidden spots where she could have hidden and reappeared." My husband silently nodded, continuing to stare straight ahead. What was that? A play of imagination? Or a glitch in the matrix itself? I still recall that incident with a slight chill down my spine, realizing how thin the line is between the ordinary and the inexplicable.
I want to share with you an unusual story from my life that happened during the difficult 90s of the last century. I was 22 at the time, my husband was 24, and we moved to a small village in search of work, bringing along our little daughter, who had just turned 1. We settled in an old wooden house, renting a small apartment. My husband quickly found a job, while I stayed home to take care of the child. Life was hard, but we tried to survive by any means. One detail stood out in our new home: the absence of closets for storing things. We decided to temporarily make do with a simple solution. We hammered a small nail in the corner of the room and hung our clothes. I threw an old tall curtain over the top, brought from my mother's house. It was a sturdy fabric, more like a thick mesh, which many people used in those tough times. It all started early in the morning when the child woke us up crying. I went to check on the little one, calmed her down, and put her back to sleep. As I was returning to the bedroom, I suddenly froze at the entrance to the living room. The clothes standing in the corner looked strangely twisted, and at the level of my knees, there was a large longitudinal tear in the towel, perfectly symmetrical and neat, resembling a smile. Startled, I almost screamed and hurried to wake my husband, asking why he had made such a big hole. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and replied completely sincerely that he had slept all night and hadn't gone anywhere at all. Doubtful, I decided to leave the situation to the conscience of my tired husband, and in the evening, thoroughly sewed up the pierced hole with a double stitch using strong threads. It turned out quite well. The repair marks became invisible. The next morning made me uneasy again. The child became restless once more, and I had to get up and go to him. Returning back, I felt a strange sensation, as if a voice quietly uttered the word curtain. At first, I thought it was a product of my fatigued mind, focused on the child, but the persistence of the feeling made me turn around. I stopped, stunned. Yesterday's artificial smile had appeared again in the fabric, sharply and clearly cut, the tear even severing the strong thread of my recent repair. I felt a chilling fear, unable to hold back a scream. My husband woke up instantly, looking at what was happening with fright. Not understanding the reason for my state, it became clear to both of us that something supernatural had occurred. All possible explanations were immediately exhausted. The child could not yet move independently, and we did not keep animals in the apartment. We decided to immediately move the items away from the wall and get rid of the ill-fated curtain. About a week later, sitting alone in the living room and tidying my own eyebrows, I heard another phrase from the host of the comedy show Smek Panorama on television. Yevgeny Petrosyan was telling jokes, among which there was a little joke about house spirits. Completely suddenly, I distinctly heard the word curtain repeated in my mind. Turning my attention to the window, I noticed a simple curtain hanging opposite me. A few minutes of silence were broken by a new inner voice, insistently repeating the same word. A strange feeling made me look more closely. It seemed an invisible hand had lifted the edge of the fabric, revealing a tattered child's balloon. Left unnoticed after my daughter's party, the balloon rolled toward me, gradually slowing down, stopping right in front of the sofa. Fear gripped me instantly. My breath caught, my throat tightened, and my body went stiff. The voice, suppressed by fright, refused to obey, leaving me helpless. Only after some time did I regain my composure, picked up the little one, grabbed the bags, and dashed outside, waiting for my husband to return from work. The next day we hurriedly left this place, moving into a new house. Many years have passed. Now I am 45, but the memories of what happened remain fresh and vivid. If I hadn't experienced such an adventure myself, I would hardly have believed anyone else.